All those fears about coming into recovery and coming into a rehab with a program, none of that anxiety that I had compared to staying in addiction is just, it's the biggest stepping stone to what we all really want, and that's a new life, and that's what Kenwood has given me.
Now looking back, the healing that I can see that I've got from talking about my problems in those group settings is unbelievable.
They've helped me bring out in me a confidence to come and speak like this. I never believed that I'd be able to do something like this. That what I have to say is important.
I can feel a confidence happening inside that's just growing daily, that I'm worthy, I don't need anything, and I'm ready. I'm absolutely ready now to do something.
Before Kenwood, it felt like I was in hell, in the back of my mum and dad's garage. I wouldn't go out on a sunny day. I love the countryside. I couldn't go outdoors. I just look at it and think I should be out there. I'm an artist. I should be out there painting it, and I could not get myself out of that garage and my bottles of cider.
I wasn't invited to family functions and stuff, you know, birthdays, because I would end up embarrassing myself and other people. So not a lot of contact really with any of my brother, sister, mum.
So I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, really. I was knocking on heaven's door, really. With the self-harming, the overdoses, the crime, the shame and the guilt. I needed to change, you know. I needed to change my thinking, my behaviour, my appearance, but it works from the inside out.
We've been doing this sort of work for about over 40 years now, and we keep getting more experiences and learning more from the clients. We learn from the clients learn from us, we learn from the clients, and we'll use that to help them go forward.
They've got a long time dealing with addictions, so they've got a lot of knowledge in there. You know, they've dealt with a lot of different people coming from all walks of life, you know, and nothing phases anyone in Kenwoods, you know. You can be the worst person in the world, what you think, but they won't phase. They always having a heart for you.
Like many charities, we were founded through the vision and passion of one individual, and in our case that was a man called Ray Sinden. Very successful farmer and businessman, but began to get a real heart for the homeless. Sold his possessions and brought Kenwood House.
If you go to any of our projects, the quality of the actual accommodation and the environment that people are put into is one where you are nurtured, but also it's a very caring environment, and an environment where you want to make changes in your life, I think, and develop, and you know, the negativity is taken away, and I think it's filled with positivity.
The ground itself, we've got 15, 16 acres. It's near enough and far enough from civilisation and public transport to make access.
It's really important when you've got to work hard at dealing with those issues that you've got the opportunity to have some headspace.
We mix old and new. The basic stuff works, and you can't skip that. You cannot skip the foundation. But as time is going on, we recognise there is no one way of treating people. You cannot fit people into boxes. So we don't just choose anything. We look at the research and the evidence. But if there is something that's going to help someone, we're going to give it a shot.
There's always a lot of pressures on people being able to move on with sort of targets and outcomes, and I think Kenwood's able to give people the right amount of time to succeed.
One of the things we feel is really important is to look at every person as an individual. So we personalise people's care here to make sure that we're going at the right pace for that individual. So we're about what we call the 3 R's. We're about recovery. Recovery from addiction. We're about reintegrating people back into their families, back into communities. And finally, we're about resettlement of people into purposeful and meaningful lives, helping people to rediscover what they can give back to society, what they're interested in, what they enjoy doing.
Guys who use drugs and alcohol for many years and become entrenched in its use of those products. So it's our job to try and get some changes and behaviour changes, and so they can understand life is very possible without drugs and alcohol. They can have great times without drugs and alcohol and go forward.
During the assessment process, I would aim to establish a number of things. Firstly, I'd be looking at the chronology of their presenting issues and their problems, and trying to establish the relationship, if any, between those problems. I'd also be looking at whether the issues and the problems require independent treatment, or whether treating one will help alleviate the other. It's also important for me to get a more holistic picture of the client by looking at their lifestyle and any historical factors relating to their problems. It's this information that will lead to a practical care plan or an individual care plan that recognises their immediate needs and their long-term needs and also their wishes.
Of course, there will be trepidation and fear, what's going to happen, but in my experience, that was washed away by the welcome I got by the fellow peers, and in terms of the challenging groups, or having to look at our own characters and behaviours. Again, this is the best place to do something like that. It's safe. Safest place on earth.
We use dual diagnosis as a term to describe individuals who present with both a severe mental illness and problematic substance use. However, at Kenwood Trust, we generally find that our clients' needs are often multiple rather than dual, and can include social, physical, psychological, as well as medical needs.
In the mornings from 9 to 1, it's the main crux of our work and the main chance of guys making differences in their lives. That's a therapeutic group.
Some of it's challenging, some of it was more straightforward, how not to pick up again. Again, nothing, it doesn't sound complicated, but there's all sorts of things we have to be taught to look out for. Other issues, anger, loneliness, all the things that could lead us back to where we came from.
And in the afternoons, we're much more likely to do some activities as opposed to therapy type work.
You would have woodwork, you'd have education sessions, you'd have gardening, you will have repairing bikes, looking at employment skills for employment, all different things in the afternoon that probably wouldn't be touched in the life they were leading before they arrived here at Kenwood.
So it's not all therapy and deep and meaningful. We do have fun here as well. It's a fun site. I mean, 20 blokes, it can be very funny.
This is a creative arts room. The residents come in here if they're going to paint or use the clay. Sometimes they're just in here and they're writing, so it's some creative writing, anything creative that they do in here. If you watch the pleasure they get from doing something that they wouldn't usually be doing somewhere else, to see that it has a therapeutic value without question. And sometimes residents have never done anything like this and think they're not going to enjoy it, and once the process starts, actually they take off and you find actually they're fantastic at art, just hidden talents in there that they didn't know they had.
So we've got quite a few acres here, and the guys come up and you can see they've been planting. Well, we understand it's not for everybody, you have to have an interest, but for us it represents something. From very small things, very small tiny seeds, we get some really great plants, and I think it's a bit like the clients here. With time and a bit of nurturing and a bit of care, and you will get growth. It makes them smile. You've achieved something.
Because I'd never done any, I didn't see what people saw in it, but when I stood back and looked at the garden after it had been done, weeded, and it was looking pretty, there's a certain sense of satisfaction.
So the important thing is that we are offering choice. We have a range of different programmes. So for those people that want to be with only women, to deal with their particular issues, and we've got a separate women's only project.
Female-only rehab is beneficial not because it's keeping men out, but because it's providing a safe space for women to be able to discuss what they need to. Some women come here because they've had really negative domestic violence relationships. Some women actually come here because men are their addiction and they need that space where they're not tempted. It basically comes down to it being a safe space where people feel like they can share.
Being women only, I found for me the trust levels there more, and I could talk about all things that happened, like right from my childhood before I picked up the drug or drink. If I was going to do this, I had to do it right for me. There was no sort of like back doors, sort of like, oh yeah, I'll go to a mixed one and then I can change the way I feel there. I was either going to do it properly or I wasn't going to do it, which is part of my addictive nature. It's either all or nothing, so it does work in a bonus way sometimes.
The programme is basically amalgamation of different styles within the industry. So it's cognitive behavioural therapy, it's motivational interviewing. We do have elements of 12-step, but we're not a 12-step orientated programme.
And so you just learn so much about yourself, which I'm really, really grateful. If I hadn't come to rehab, there's loads of things I'd never know.
We believe that there are as many different ways to treat a person as there are people who are in addiction. So we use what works. We use a bit of everything in each group. The sensory room is designed because not everybody processes information in the same way. A lot of people, they're sitting around in a group, freeze, and they're not able to talk, but they're desperate to, especially in the early days. In the sensory room, the environment is changed, it makes them feel more comfortable. Also within there we use all the sand trays, so some of it is touch orientated. They may not want to tell us the first time, they may not trust us yet, but they may want to show us an object that gives us an idea of where they're feeling.
Best thing I've ever done. So grateful for it, for how caring everyone is, staff, the work that you do, the objectives that you go through, working through all your stuff that you've suppressed.
You learn about yourself, which was one of the major reasons I wanted to come, to do a bit of digging around and soul searching and find out, you know, why I did certain things.
Women are doing things here that actually probably take the rest of the world decades to do.
Kenwood Barn is a residential project for men. It's an intense group working programme. It's a therapeutic community and the men live together in a converted barn, a beautiful converted barn, very homely and comfortable, living like a family. And then they have therapeutic duties, which are jobs within the house.
When I decided to go to Kenwood Barn, I'd been told about it and told that it was a great programme, that if you were serious about giving up, it was a really good place to go.
When I came to Kenwood Barn, I was nervous, I was anxious. I hadn't done a lot of things without drugs and drink in my system, but I got a real sense of peace. You know, I had Chris, my key worker, and you know, I felt really comfortable talking about any stuff, and I got lots of encouragement from the staff.
In my first stage of recovery at the barn, Kenwood Barn, within a few weeks it was noticeable that how I changed as a person. Obviously I was working their program, which is an AA based program, the 12 steps. I was encouraged a lot by staff to get through the steps, which I found a lot of peace of mind. But people on the outside, friends and family, could already see the change in me while I was at the barn.
I think it's that sense of belonging and that sense of not being judged, and a sense of being worth something. Because for a lot of people, I think in active addiction, there's a feeling of worthlessness, and to suddenly feel valued and a part of something is really important, and that's the start of beginning to regain self-confidence. On the last day we have a leaving ceremony, and to sit and listen to somebody, they write letters to each other and talk about their time at the barn and the changes they've made. And the confidence that you can see in a person in just a few months, the confidence, that real sense of achievement, that real sense of hope for the future, that's what makes me stay here and do the job I do.
People can then go on to a second stage project where they can continue some of that work, but doing far more about looking at independent living.
The Malthouse project is a second stage project within the Kenwood Trust. Some of the men completing their first stage placement were not ready to go back to independent life or to go on to one of our final stage projects. They recognised for themselves that they would benefit to continue in a therapeutic programme.
Just being at the Malthouse is kind of, you know, helping me and teaching me to take responsibility.
To have left the barn and gone back into the community, it was too much of a done deal for me. I had to further that with a structure, and that's what the Malthouse offers. So I got a good education at the Malthouse. I left here with level 1 computer skills.
I was doing education with the staff in the Malthouse. They encouraged me to go on to college and do English.
We also offer one-to-one counselling, and for those who have needs in that area, we have people who come along and help with cooking skills as well. The things we cover in our therapeutic groups, particularly under relapse prevention, will be things like triggers to relapse, high-risk situations. We'll be looking at how the men cope with high levels of anxiety, feelings of anger, relationship difficulties. But rather than just running a rolling programme, we ask the men what are those particular issues that they struggle with, and sense what the need is, and then shape the group to hopefully meet those needs.
It still offers a 5 days a week of a programme which is around relapse prevention, life opportunities, and just working and furthering that structure closer to the edge of going back into the community.
That one of the things that the Malthouse offers here is time. So men can stay here for 3, 6, 9 or even 12 months, and during that time they're reintegrating into community, being involved in voluntary work as a stepping stone back into the community.
And then people can also then go on to some smaller houses where they can try out that living independently, moving into training, employment and education, being free from being dependent on benefits and dependent on other people. So finding out what they're good at, what they can give back to their society.
My role is looking after supported accommodation, move on accommodation for the charity, which is across West Kent and is abstinence-based shared accommodation for after when people have been into projects such as the house here at Yalding.
Under guidance, if you like, from my key worker here, which is living in Maidstone. The programme continues. It's like a bridge to normal life.
In our Move On projects, we offer one-to-one support with our residents. We also offer house meetings with the residents, and they'll be able to get peer support in those meetings. So not only will they have a support worker who will work with them and offer them support, they'll also be able to offer support from each other.
The key thing we're about is transforming lives, making a real difference to people, not only individuals but to their families and, as I say, to whole communities. Because we know that the effects of drug and alcohol addiction are devastating and it ripples out far and wide beyond just affecting the individual.
My role in particular is really just trying to ingrain that people actually can get back into society and can get back into the community, and actually it is a realistic option to get a job and it is a realistic option to be retrained in another area, you know, and actually you don't have to give up and your life doesn't have to be dependent on benefits and relying on social housing the rest of your life. Actually, you can make your own life yourself and you can move where you want to move to in your life.
So we've got a family programme we've got going now to help families, so we can engage with the families of the client that's in this service, and that's quite new, and that's a fantastic way to go, and we get results with that as well. Because an addiction problem doesn't affect the client only, it affects those around them. And they're the ones, when we're not there, the family can support the client. So we need to try and bring them in to help support the client as well. But if the family wants to come in and engage with the client here, we can arrange that and make that happen. It's a really good programme, I think, because it makes changes. It's the family that does all the hard work when the clients have left us and gone back to their homes. Because guys do change. You know, many years of drinking or using drugs, and guys leave here, they have changed considerably. So you need some support outside. We will arrange all that support, but additionally, if your family can understand where you're coming from, that's a great help for us.
From the day they come in, we're starting to prepare them for leaving. You know, there's no point in locking somebody away for 3 months and telling them that, you know, they're living in a little cloud if we don't prepare them for leaving to the outside world.
And what is really important too is to keep in touch with people, so that if they find that they're slipping into relapsing, they can get back in touch with us. And so often that's the bit that can make the difference to prevent them going back to their old lives and sustain that recovery.
One of my biggest concerns on leaving the malt house would be that would be the end of my recovery, in the sense of with Kenwood Trust, but that's not the case.
One of the best things for me when I did leave was knowing that they're just a phone call away and that they'll be there for me no matter what time, no matter what's going on.
And the ongoing support as well. You know, I can pick up the phone and I can ring, I can come in here and do things like this. I can come in just for a key worker session if I want to.
It's still good to come and talk about stuff that we might be struggling with, i.e. utility bills or anything, or just experiences of life.
Stopping's easy, it's keeping them stopped, and learning how to live your life without a drug or alcohol is a really challenge. It's one of the hardest things anybody's ever going to do in their lives. It's our job to try and make that happen for them.
People often ask us, well, what good does it do? Can people really change? And the answer is yes. We see people's lives really can be changed. They can move out of that really horrible place where they're completely dependent on a substance. They can be free from that.
I'm actually in a relationship with my ex-wife now. We started seeing each other again the day that I moved on from Kenwood. I moved out of here. We're getting to know each other again, and it's amazing. I never believed. I don't think she believed that it would ever happen either.
My sister wants me to be a part of my niece's life, and she sends me videos all the time, and we speak on Skype, so she recognises me. And when I go home, you know, it's it's all new to me, but it's amazing. It's amazing the relationships I have with my family now.
The good news is life is not boring when you're clean, so whether it's drugs or alcohol. It's not in the slightest bit boring, it's much, much better. You can feel it coursing through your veins. And not alcohol, but life. So in no way is it boring. You meet people, getting involved, it's fun. That's the other thing, I mean, recovery is fun.
Actually, I've laughed more since I've been in recovery than all, however good I thought the times were before, this is better.
And now I can run the shop, I get trusted with all the takings, do you know what I mean? And everything like that, it's good to, it makes me feel better about myself.
Absolutely, new beginnings with family and friends, new lives, new relationships that had died before I came into recovery are now alive and kicking.
People coming back together, they come with their children, children who had kind of lost hope, but now those relationships are back, people are back together again and seeing a new future, new possibilities, new hope.
I feel now I'm the person that I've been looking for, that's always been there, but it's been suppressed. Amazing, absolutely amazing. This is beyond my wildest dreams.